This is the big news of the day. Of course, it's across many, if not all, of the front pages. UK Supreme Court judges have unanimously ruled that a woman is defined by biological sex under the Equalities Law. Now, the judge, Lord Hodge, has stressed that the ruling should not be seen as a triumph of one side over the other, and that the law still gives protection against discrimination to transgender people. Now, I think this has become a very toxic debate, hasn't it? Probably over the last 7 or 8 years. And I think if we're being honest on the panel, we're nervous about talking about it.
Absolutely.
Because
the debate has been hijacked and it's very, very hard because we're all, especially those of us in the public eye, we're all terrified of cancellation for saying the wrong thing.
Well, and also out of genuine regard for the women who have felt this was very important in terms of protections in places like hospitals, prisons, refuges, sport, etc. But also out of regard of the trans community, who are a small and vulnerable community that nobody wants to see, you know, feeling... Well, we've all heard of stories, haven't we, of individuals in the community who are scared right now. And I don't think anyone wants to see that, do they? No one.
Community.
Where did this toxicity start? I
know, it's so interesting because we're talking like,
yeah,
you know, the character of Hayley Cropper in Coronation Street. How long ago was that, Denise?
About 25 years, I would say. I was there, so about 25 years.
Early
20 years ago, Nadia, trans woman, won a Big Brother.
Yeah.
Now, for the trans community, of course, they will have always suffered terrible prejudice and discrimination. But at what
they
point
are the most abused community, the trans community.
Yeah, what point were people being asked to hate and be so angry?
I know. I mean,
25 years ago, our wonderful friend and wonderful actress Julie Hesmondhalgh, of course, famously played Hayley. Nowadays, a trans actress would be asked to play Hayley.
Yeah.
But this morning, I spoke to Jake Graff. You may know of Jake and Hannah Graff, a well-known trans couple married to each other. And Hannah is really feeling the pain of this ruling. She is a trans woman who has served in the army, and she feels that she has served her country, and she feels that the country have turned against her. And Jake made a very good analogy when I was trying to think what to say. And he said, it's like Brexit. No matter what your feelings about Brexit are, he said it gave people almost the right to be racist and say racist things. And he said this gives people, especially those who don't really understand hugely the trans community, the opportunity to challenge. And it's made Hannah very fearful. She's a mum of 2 daughters. You know, she's lived her life very happily as a trans woman with all of the abuse that comes their way anyway. And I completely understand that. And I think it's about definitely protecting the rights of biological women, but also still protecting the trans community.
But that's the job we now have to do.
Because I don't quite know, Kay, what this ruling has changed.
Well, this was a legal ruling, wasn't it? That said that when it comes down to, under the Equalities Act of 2010, that a woman will be defined by their biological sex. So take the example that we had in Scotland that I think a lot of people took notice of, where a convicted double rapist called Isla Bryson decided that during the case, they were transitioning to be a woman and spent some time within a woman's prison. Now, if you are detained within a woman's prison and then, you know, comes into the prison an individual who is a double rapist, a convicted double rapist, and has recently transitioned to be a woman, is that an acceptable situation?
It's not, but there are always going to be bad people and bad men.
Well, yeah, but the thing is, that's what the law's for. Most of us live our lives in a very law-abiding way. And I would absolutely... it breaks my heart to think of your friend feeling that they're going to be challenged. Most of us go about our lives doing the right thing. The law is there to put in place guardrails when people start to veer off. So it's in place to try and make sure the Isla Bryson case does not happen.
Yeah.
It's not there in place for people to be challenged, for people to be threatened, for people to be discriminated. And in the Equalities Law, you know, the trans community do have protections. Having said that, I fully understand why they will be feeling very, very nervous at the moment.
Yeah.
And we have to take the opportunity... We now have to take the opportunity to listen to people, to try and understand people instead of shouting at people, because that's what we have done for 7 years.
Yeah.
We have shouted one
Where
side
did that
to the other.
start? Which politician, was there a politician that used this as red meat? And these women actually that brought the case have been through hell in lots of ways, haven't
The
they?
For Women Scotland group, I mean, I know there was all this stuff yesterday of them celebrating popping champagne. I mean, I have no direct contact with them. There was a feeling it was sort of, some people are interpreting it as transphobic. You know, they have been on a very hard road. They felt very strongly about this, protecting women in refuges and vulnerable places, etc. And they were vilified a lot of the time in Scotland. You know, Nicola Sturgeon called a lot of them transphobic, which they would absolutely say they weren't. So I would wonder if part of their jubilation yesterday was about, you know, them feeling vindicated.
And yet again, front pages of the newspapers want to rule by dividing again.
Yeah.
You know,
The media want
this
to
is
divide.
about having a better conversation.
But we don't want to buy into
recognise
that.
it.
Where are you on it,
I
Brenda?
I think, you know, I remember when myself and Denise were on the panel with Monroe, which was very enlightening for me. And, you know, she spoke about the discrimination that was faced in the workplace, the discrimination with getting the correct right healthcare, any healthcare and homelessness. And I think that this debate has the possibility of pulling focus away from what the actual real issues are that the transgender community are facing. You know, it's very easy for everybody to be all talking and up in arms and then just sweep what the actual real issues are under the carpet and they never get resolved. That's what I'm a bit nervous of.
Well, I mean, this ruling does nothing to change the fact that it will be illegal to discriminate against trans people based on
the fact that they're trans.
I
think it's just important
But what
for
it does
everybody
is
to be
it
able to
opens
feel
it
that
up
they're
to, because again, I
comfortable.
was trying to ask the questions this morning saying, so if our trans community is still protected, what does this actually change? I guess what it changes, say, for example, at the NHS, if our trans women friends were admitted to hospital, previously they would wake up in a women's ward. Now it gives the NHS the possible right to have that not be the case. That's where it is difficult. Well, I think as well, because of social media, we talk much more about the issues of young children. A lot of our young children are growing up in a very, 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 very confused world. And there has been the issue about giving hormone blockers to younger people. I'm glad that we're addressing those. But if I can just say, my friend Rebecca, who is a trans actress, I did a series with her called Boy Meets Girl years ago.
Yeah.
For those of us who know who we are, Rebecca once said, when I said, what does it feel like to be trans? And she said, from the age of 4, it felt like being in a prison with no release date. And I think that we all love that community. And I think it's very hard to understand it unless you break it down to those sort of levels. So I also believe that we do have to understand and protect the rights of biological women. It's so hard because I've got my toe in so many different ponds. It's really difficult to discuss it because every time you're self-editing and thinking, what can I say?
We have found ourselves in this situation with so many contentious issues that we get into this binary position. You're either for it or against it. You know, you're in this camp or you're in that camp. This is too complicated for that. And in terms of the toxicity that we've seen over the last 8 years, I think our politicians have let us down.
Yes.
I think they've allowed it to become toxic. And I think we have to take some responsibility not to continue that.
Exactly.
If this does anything, if it is a bit of a reset, surely it's time to stop shouting at each other.
Yeah.
Start listening to each other.
And moving forward to discuss
and trying
this more
to understand
on
different
this
people's
show.
perspectives.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's not the last we've heard of it because now actually that law has to be applied in the real world and obviously that's going to bring change too.